And it's Friday, so we know what that means. The BBE is now live. Nottingham Ale, boys, Nottingham Ale. No liquor on earth is like Nottingham Ale. Nottingham Ale, boys, Nottingham Ale. No liquor on earth is like Nottingham Ale. Nottingham Ale, boys, Nottingham Ale. No liquor on earth is like Nottingham Ale. Nottingham Ale, boys, Nottingham Ale. No liquor on earth is like Nottingham Ale. And we have a very special BBE Live today, which a recurring guest, expert, but we'll get to her in a moment when Brandy does her introductions. But if you're first joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're a returnee, thanks so much for coming back. My name is Thomas Allen. I am the resident countertenor, singer, and one of the directors of the BBE.
And I'm Leanne Dale Ragusa. I'm the resident flute player and also one of the directors of the BBE, and I'm streaming to you live from Bloomington, Indiana.
And I am yet another one of the directors of the BBE, resident violinist. And I guess my name is Brandy Berry Benson. I should say that right too. And and we're super thrilled to have special guest Kris Kwapis, who is joining us to talk to you guys and us about a very rare and very beautiful instrument. So she is kind of the, historian, the expert, nationally recognized on the subject. I didn't even know you were a chess champion, which is also awesome. So we'll be hearing about that as well. But thank you, Kris, for joining us live today.
Happy to be here live from Seattle.
Yes. Is that where, I think that's, the Trumpet d'Amore first arrived in the U.S., actually in Seattle. Isn't that true, Kris? Or am I mistaken?
Well, it's interesting because people like to claim things like that all the time, right? It's just like that thing where people like to say that their instrument is the one that sounds most like the voice,
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see, it's the flute, it's the violin, it's the trumpet, but I think it's a similar situation with tromba d'amore or trumpet d'amore. So everyone wants to claim where it first flourished in North America, but so it's a bit of a contested situation.
Interesting. No wonder you placed third in your championship. That's amazing. Thanks so much, Kris. All right. Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as we know, we have a series of games we're going to lead you through every Friday. And Leanne, why don't you kick it off? Destroyer of Worlds.
All right. So my game, The Sordid Lives of Composers. So how it works is I'm going to read you a paragraph about a composer. There's going to be 4 multiple choice answers on the screen. Before you give your answer, there's going to be a little thinking music to give you a little time to contemplate who you think the composer is. And if you could give us a reason why, that would be great too, because I, for one, don't really know a lot about the Trumpet d'Amore, so I would love to find out anything. So without further ado, Here's the first question. This composer was born near Eisenach in 1696 and entered the service of the Margrave of Baden-Durlach in Karlsruhe. He was sent to Venice and Rome to study and returned to Eisenach and was appointed Kapellmeister in 1722. The disbanding of the orchestra in the difficult years of the War of the Polish Succession led to his appointment as Kapellmeister at Eisenach. In 1753, he returned to Karlsruhe, where he reestablished a small orchestra as well as teaching. His compositions include concerti for several instruments, and some 40 of those are preserved. Among them, 5 concerti for 2 trumpets and 1 concerto for the Trumpet d'Amore. The trumpet concerti were written at Eisenach around 1750. Is this ringing some bells, maybe, Kris?
Yes.
Okay. So these concerti are similar in form with a homophonic style and simple, clear harmonies. Technically, the trumpet concerti are demanding and considerable sustaining power is needed in the slow movements. The trumpet concerti were written for Karl Pfeiffer of the Karlsruhe Court Orchestra. So who was this composer? Was it Christoph Graupner, Johann Friedrich Fasch, Johann Melchior Molter, or Gottfried Reiche? But first, a little thinking music.
Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance.
I mean, wasn't Pfeiffer and Foch, weren't they really good friends?
Well, I mean, maybe, but these things are really hard to trace, right? We can speculate on a lot of things, but I mean, maybe you're just thinking because their last names sound similar.
I mean, that's it.
They
Probably,
start with
yeah.
the same syllable, right? So it's possible that maybe that's what you're thinking. I mean, the one I know for sure is Gottfried Reiche, because he, of course, was Bach's trumpet player. So that the location just doesn't add up. But what really got me there, I wasn't quite sure. And then Leanne said he was a composer who wrote the one concerto for the Tromba d'Amore. So, I mean, that really helps narrow it down. And, I guess this is a good time to just mention, like, when we think about the Tromba d'Amore, you have to think about, like, how did it get its name, and often we might think that there's a connection, like with the oboe d'amore, for example. And so the tone of the oboe d'amore was described as more somber than the treble, but less weighty than the tenor. And but what's really interesting is that the tromba d'amore is sometimes called the screeching tenor of the brass family. So it's
that makes total sense. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, especially the oboe d'amore sort of kind of reaching into the tenor range as normally a treble instrument, and then here's the trumpet version that sort of has a screeching tenor-ness about it. But to get back to the composer, I think it's letter C, Molter. I think that's who it is. What do you folks think?
I mean, that was highly convincing to me. So
I mean, that was very compelling.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, I kind of ruled out Foch to begin with because I was like, well, he's very much wind. I don't remember him doing so much with brass. Graupner could have been a possibility, maybe with some horns. So that was like, but but definitely I thought, well, it can't be D for the reason you said. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with C. That sounds like that could be.
Well, I hope my research will reveal itself as solid.
You can breathe a sigh of relief because you are correct. It's Molter. Okay. So we're off to a good start. So let's go to question number 2.
Good work, Kris.
Good.
This composer was born in 1688 at Buttelstadt near Weimar and was trained at the Thomas Schule in Leipzig under Kuhnau, later studying with Graupner and Grunewald at Darmstadt. After various appointments, he became, in 1722, Kapellmeister in Zerbst, where he remained until his death in 1758. He wrote music of all kinds, including a quantity of church music, much of which is now lost. In common with some of his contemporaries, he began to move away from the Baroque style towards a pre-classical style of composition. In his Trumpet d'Amore Concerto No. 1 in D major, he starts with the form developed by Vivaldi, but develops a style of his own with less distinction between the soli and tutti parts, showing some of the traits of the newly developing style. This particular concerto may have been composed for a trumpeter at the court of Zerbst, or possibly just for a visiting composer. So, was this composer Johann Friedrich Foch, George Philipp Telemann, Christoph Graupner, or Johann Mattheson? But first, some thinking music.
Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance.
I don't
Do you
know
have any idea?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if that thinking music was long enough, but so you were about to say, do I have an idea?
Yes.
Well, now it's interesting because you know what Brandy just said about Foch and about how he used more woodwind instruments, but I do know that that composer also that Foch also wrote some things for trumpet, and of course, you know, since there are so few like pieces available for the tromba d'amore, it's a little bit easier to distinguish. But you know, I swear that Telemon is another possibility. Like, well, here's another thing. Like sometimes, you know, when you said something about Vivaldi, it made me think of the Italian connection here. And sometimes the tromba d'amore was used in theater music, especially for offstage parts. So we've probably heard of the tromba lontana, which is it means the trumpet in the distance. So even Handel uses that indication in the score for like for Messiah, the Glory to God chorus where the trumpets are in the distance, right? But what's really interesting is the score indication for tromba d'amore is often called tromba lontaissimo, which means very, very far in the distance, like very far.
Like another
like not even
like perhaps like yeah, like really far away. Because then you know you can't hear if there are some, I don't know, some people might call them mistakes. I like to call them, you know, representations of humanity. But yeah. What do you folks think before I give my choice? What do you think it might be? Who do you think it might be?
I mean, Kris, I'm kind of with you because both Foch and Telemann have been referred to as visiting composers, as Leanne said. So I'm kind of torn between the two.
Yeah.
Well, and we do know that Telemann wrote the concerto he's written several concerti for d'amore instruments, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, he wrote, he even has a triple concerto, right? For flauto d'amore, oboe d'amore, and viola d'amore. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he intended to include a tromba d'amore, but maybe there was the player wasn't available. And I bet the player for this piece by this composer, there is this little known Polish trumpet player named Milo Trabko-Kowalski. And has anyone heard of him? Have you heard
Never.
of him? No. Well, it's really interesting because he changed his name to Milo Trabka, right? Because that literally means, so like trumpeter of love in Polish is Trembok Miłości.
Oh.
Yeah, so he changed his name to Milo, like Miloshki, but you know, Milo Trabka Kowalski. And so he probably played this piece, and I think it was by Foch.
Ah, wow. See, I was thinking as soon as you were talking about that Polish connection, I was like thinking, well, maybe Telemann, because, you know, because I mean, I think I heard that maybe Vivaldi also perhaps has a lost work for trumpet, you know, trumpet d'amore and some other instruments. So maybe Chalumeau in there too. So I mean, you know, so I'm kind of wondering, you know, how far that influence really carries. So,
Well, you know, people speculate that you can play the Vivaldi concerto for two trumpets with one Chalumeau and one tromba d'amore.
Oh, what an interesting combination.
Right?
Can you also swap in a screeching tenor for that too, and have the Chalumeau with the screeching tenor?
Well, you know, that's an excellent point, and perhaps they could do a Hockett style arrangement where they could go back and forth, and you could really enjoy the the possibilities of timbre between that's the screeching tenor of the brass family
Right.
and the screeching tenor of the tenor family, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So
God,
we
I'm
have,
so glad Kris was here. This is great. Okay.
I know, I'm learning so much.
Yes.
So just
Thanks
get
for
to see,
asking.
we have Kris who said Foch. Now I
Yes.
lost track because she's talking so much about the trumpet de Moray. I'm just captivated. So Brandy and Thomas,
I'm with Kris. I'm with Kris.
Okay.
I'm with Bosch.
Okay. Well, I think I'll diverge and go B for BBE.
All right. I'm sorry, Brandy.
I know.
Oh,
It's Foch.
yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
Oof.
Kris, we just can't stump you. You're off to a good start.
Yes,
Well,
she's good.
I do my homework, you know, that's.
Well, let's see if you know this person with the crazy hair.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of jealous. My hair would never do that.
yeah.
It would take
never.
a lot of product and time to achieve that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
It's fashionable, though.
It is
fast.
very fashionable.
Yeah.
All right.
Hair at its best.
True. So this composer was born in Verona in 1658, was employed in the orchestra of the Basilica of San Petronio in Bologna, first in 1686 as a viola player. Maybe he played the viola de Moray. I don't know. Until the disbanding of the orchestra in 1696, and then from 1701 to 1709 as a violinist. Between 1696 and 1701, he was active in Vienna and Ansbach. His Suonat, I'm really going to butcher this because I cannot speak Italian. Suonata con strumenti e tromba, maybe, of 1690. Did I butcher that completely?
Not at all. It's great.
Okay, great. Well,
It's exactly how the composer would have pronounced it. Yes.
Probably.
Historical performance for practice right there. Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
Well, so it was written in 1690, and it's his first known work for solo trumpet. Additionally, he wrote many sonatas, concerti, camera, and sinfonie. He wrote more than 30 concertos for 1 to 4 trumpets, as well as a concerto for 4 trumpets de Moray. 4. Maybe there are only 4 that existed. I don't know how they actually performed this piece. And it required the orchestra. Well, okay, so it wasn't published during his lifetime, so maybe that's why it never got performed. But the orchestra required a minimum of 4 oboes, 2 bassoons, trombone, timpani, 4 violins, 2 violas, 4 cellos, 2 double basses, and continuo. So quite an orchestra. The composition was the same order of movements as the church sonata, the first beginning with a theme that recurs several times in the manner of a ritornello. The theme is taken up by the trumpets, which have several distinctive passages. The second movement is a fugue with a subject that occurs in the work of other composers, such as Alessandro Stradella and Corelli, and in a slightly different form, Vincenzio Albrisi. The third movement is for strings only. The trumpets need a break because, remember, it takes a lot of manpower to play the trumpet de Moray.
Well,
but they came back.
Some kind of power.
I mean, some kind of power. I don't know. But they came back in full force in the 4th movement. So,
yes.
Who do you think this composer is? Was it Locatelli, Scarlatti, Vivaldi, or Torelli? But first, some thinking music. And remember, the thinking music is short, so think
I'm a
fast.
kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance.
Sorry, Leah. It got so exciting. I just couldn't stop it.
Well, I want to know what other people think first, because I feel like I don't want to give it away.
I mean, yeah,
So
if
what do
I
you
learned my lesson last question, it was to just go with Kris. So, but I'll tell you my thoughts. I mean, I was thinking Torelli for a good chunk of that when you started off, and then I don't know. I guess I'm floating because I feel like I should have memorized Locatelli's dates, man. Like that's I just did that to myself, like So I don't know. I'm leaning between like D and A.
Okay.
But a little more towards D. A bit more towards D.
And what about you,
think
Thomas? What do you think?
Didn't Torelli have an interest in sort of like unusual instruments too? I mean, I feel like maybe it could have been Torelli for that reason. And Chris will inform us the number of trumpet d'amores later, perhaps. But Leanne was speculating maybe there were very few. So it sounds like Torelli might be a very good choice for this if he so enjoyed it. So,
well, the thing about Torelli is that he wrote, that we know of, at least 36 concerti for trumpet. But the really interesting part is, I mean, I think it's Torelli because of, I can't think of any other composer actually that wrote for such a large ensemble of collected tromba d'amore. But, so some instruments add this addition of d'amore as an indication or association of love, right? Or it's something to do with love. But most of the contemporary scholars agree that when that term d'amore is added to the trumpet, it's the whole idea is increased. So it's not just about love, but it's like pleading for more. Like, it's the literal translation of tromba d'amore is pleading for more, asking for more. So it would make sense to want to group them together instead of just a single solo tromba d'amore player. Why not have a quartet, right? Pleading for more. How else?
It's like more, you just got to have more tromba d'amore,
Yes. But, what Leanne said too about how it wasn't published, probably with the trumpet guilds, the history of the trumpet guilds is really fascinating. And so much of it comes down to the fact that I think the trumpet players of the time were really protective of their work, kind of like they are today. And, there just weren't as many people who specialized in the tromba d'amore. So perhaps like the members of the guilds fought back against getting this piece published because they were afraid that people would start to want to hire the tromba d'amore players instead of the like traditional trumpet players. So I mean that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's certainly a fear among violinists. I mean, viola d'amores could easily take over all of the violin. So,
Right.
And screeching tenors, absolutely, because I mean they could just be knocked out of like their arias, right? Like, I mean, if it sounds the same, then why do you need a tenor to sing any of the Messiah solos or anything, right? So
and the actual tenor versus the screeching tenor, I mean, they're probably more expensive too. All of the wardrobe costs and all of the first class flights and penthouse hotel arrangements that singers usually require in their contracts. I think that's something to consider too, isn't it?
Yeah, and the d'amore player only has to have a tassel or 5, right? Like that's it. Whereas the screeching tenor has other issues, like you mentioned. Yeah.
Well, for sure. And the tassels, that is another interesting thing too, because some people, especially if you think about the etymology of the tromba d'amore, it's this perfect combination of different kinds of instruments. And, it began its life in the 15th century as a tromba marina, which is this 4 to 7 foot long bowed monochord instrument.
Wow.
But in Germany, it was literally known as a nun's trumpet. So Nonnengeige. And so perhaps the tassels might have been a little too showy, calling too much attention to itself for an instrument meant to be played by nuns. Yeah. So I think it's a bit anachronistic if you really want to get in the weeds on it, to include the tassels in this instrument that came from the tromba marina line of evolution, I suppose. But what's cool is that the trumpet d'amore ended up being like the ultimate hybrid instrument, because we have this lip buzzed aerophone in the brass family, but then we also have this chordophone, and it's a combination of the two of them. It's the tromba marina with a mouthpiece. It's really stunning. But I digress. I get so excited about this topic. I
can tell.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I think I'm going to go with Torelli, mostly because of the four tromba d'amore concerto, which I just think is unusual. I just don't think there is anyone else who would dare to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're all with Torelli. Yeah.
Torelli,
Yeah.
right? Let's go with Torelli.
I cannot stump Kris. You are correct. Torelli is the answer. Now,
Amazing.
have you played any of these concerti, Kris?
Well,
Torelli?
That's just it. I have played the concerti for trumpet, but since the four tromba d'amore concerto wasn't published, then and I actually don't have a tromba d'amore because most of those instruments were destroyed over years. So we don't have any in museums. We don't have any, no one's making copies of them. So I haven't played those pieces, but I have played the trumpet pieces by Torelli.
Oh, well, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Cool. All right. Well, are we ready for the next game?
Absolutely.
Totally.
All right, great. Well, the next game is a slight takeoff of my previous games. It's called Kris is Always Right and Cat Doppelgangers. So
I love it.
How this game will work. How this game will work is we'll get to the next screen. I don't know why we're laughing. I'm just laughing because Kris is laughing. Something tickle your funny bone there, Kris. So how this?
Yeah. Go ahead.
so how this game will work. When we go to the next screen, you'll see 4 names of famous composers, of course, and there'll be probably at least one, of course, but maybe more familiar to Kris because of their work in with trumpet d'amores. And then we'll listen to a musical excerpt, and we'll take our best educated guess at who the composer could be. And of course, since Kris is always right, she will eventually give us the answer, and then we will reveal a picture of the composer themselves. So if we're ready to play, here's your first group of composers. You can take a look at the names there, and we're going to listen to an excerpt from one of their pieces that features a whole choir of trumpet d'amores. Okay, you ready? Let's go. Here comes.
Oh dear.
God save the king! May the king live
Amen, amen, hallelujah, hallelujah, amen.
Amen,
Hallelujah, hallelujah, amen.
All right, so Kris,
It was
do you want to hold off to the end, or do we want to have somebody else tell us who was the composer of that piece?
Yes, save me for the end because I have a pretty good idea of what it is, but
Okay,
and not
excellent.
to say that you don't, but yeah.
I mean, I have an idea, but I really like the name Hump-a-Lot. And I wanted, do you actually know anything about this composer? Ivana Hump-a-Lot? I've never heard of this composer.
They're very
I mean,
obscure.
Yeah, I thought so. I want to vote for that one, but just because I like the name, but I don't really think it's that person. But I just want to say I want to know more about that composer because I'm
It was
kind
just
of
so
leaning.
moving. Oh my God, sorry.
Stop crying, Thomas. I'm kind of leaning.
Contagious.
It is. I'm kind of leaning towards B for Handel.
Mm.
But I really want it to be Hump a Lot just because I like that composer's name. And I don't know why we haven't heard more about this composer.
I mean, the female composers are not usually highlighted in a lot of concerts, but of course you have three right here up. Their craft was right in league with Handel, of course. So
Yeah, I was actually gonna go with A, Dixie Normus. So I don't know. I mean, maybe for a similar reason, but I was kind of thinking. I mean, I feel like I saw that name in a textbook somewhere, but I might be wrong. So,
Well, you might be thinking of her cousin, Dixie Dominus.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a song named after her too.
I feel like she would always say, "Hi, I'm Dixie Dominus."
true. I could be thinking about that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's actually Handel, because I'm thinking of that.
Yeah. I mean,
this is tricky.
It is tricky. I think especially when you hear that recording without the video. When you have the video that goes along with that recording, I think it becomes even more clear that well, especially the musicians playing, they definitely should have taken the advice of the tromba lontanissimo. And have those trumpets be even further in the distance. But I think we have to go with Handel on this one. Yeah.
All right. Well, as we know, the game is Kris is always right. So, of course, it was Handel. And here is a picture of Handel himself. This is a historical photo. We're very pleased to find that.
Excellent.
So
all right, great.
Well, that Handel.
Yes, I know. He was way ahead of his time, wasn't he? All right, great job, Kris. Of course, you knew it. And here's your second selection of composers. But this is a contemporary work because, as we know, there's been a resurgence in the historical instrument movement starting in the 60s, 70s. Of course, it's alive and well now, but it's been featured in, of course, cinema. And you may recognize this tune from the movie theaters. And here is an excerpt of it, that one of the original ones that featured the trumpet d'amore. All right.
Where did you find this recording, Thomas? I've never heard
this. People out there, people know that I go to UW Madison, and we have a great recording library of historical records, and I had to go digging. And I couldn't do it. I had to contact the librarians and be like, hey, do we have any excerpts, like historical records of this instrument? Because they're, you can't really find them very often. And sure enough, they had some. So they sent it over to me, and it was great. So it's not found very, but it is in UW Madison's library. So.
Oh, excellent. I have one at IU as well. Yeah. Of course, I never went to the IU library to look up trumpet d'amore material, but I'm just
opportunity.
It was a missed opportunity. I'm just thinking, there are so many, so much resources there. There's got to be, some clips.
Yeah, I have never heard that recording either. It's very earnest. I appreciate the spirit behind that performance. I really don't know the composer of this, though. Can anyone help me?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was really leaning towards, we know that Jack Daniels wasn't a musician. I mean, he was a distiller, so,
Right.
we can
rule him out.
with that.
Right. And I don't think Shakespeare, Mozart, Armstrong, that just doesn't seem like a plausible name to me.
Yeah,
They are all real names.
Well, they are all real
They are
names.
all real names of real people who are named exactly thus.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yes,
Do we
I
have-
made sure.
Can we get a date for when this was? Because you said it was, more recent.
It's contemporary. It's contemporary. So like mid 20th century.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Mm.
I'm kind of leaning towards B or C.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with C
C?
because I think Alfred Newman wasn't he a spokesperson for the Mad magazine?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, so
Maybe.
another decoy. Yeah.
Right? That's kind of but
Uh,
I don't know. That's a
I
pretty
mean-
common name too, so it could be.
it's
True.
Sorry, I just love contemporary music, so I have to bring it in. And it's great because it features the trumpet de Maury, so there's a great connection there. I know this is not in everybody's wheelhouse, but that's okay. So Leanne, who did you think?
I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna go with D because
D,
I want to know
alright.
who this person is because I've never heard of Shakespeare, Mozart, Armstrong, and I want to get to know this person.
Mhm,
Yeah,
great. Brandy, who do you think it is?
I'm going to go with Christian Guy.
Christian Guy.
Yeah.
And Chris, who do you think it is?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Christian Guy though. Boy, I'm tempted to get to know Shakespeare, Mozart, Armstrong, but I'm going to go with C.
All right. Well, since Chris said C, obviously it's C. So good job, everybody who picked C. Good job. Excellent work. And here, of course, is a picture of Christian Guy in his battle armor and going off to war. So excellent work. Of course, Chris, perfect 100 score on this one. Who would have imagined in a game called Chris is Always Right he would have been. So good work, everybody. And now we're on to our
Fascinating.
final game with Brandy.
Excellent. Well, my
Uh-oh.
game is called Two Truths and a Lie. And so, and I thank you for calling me a lapsed vegan. I mean, I am a recovering, always recovering meat eater. But anyways, so I love meat. But so in this game, I'm going to read 3 short stories, and then your job is to pick the one that is the lie. So let's get started here. This one is a lot about the Trumba Marina, which you were talking about before as like a predecessor. Yeah.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. All right. So here's the first story. The Trumba Marina, thought of as a predecessor to the trumpet de Maury, was actually a bowed string instrument known as the, quote, nun's fiddle. Its trumpet-like sound was a result of some odd construction at the base of the instrument near its bridge. Second story.
Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, dance, and I dance, dance, dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance.
I did not do that. That must have been the trumpet door.
Well,
Okay.
you can read the other stories there, but the for our audience out there, the second one is basically that while the nuns still played the trumpet, while the trumpet de Maury gained popularity in the latter half of the 17th century, the nuns still played the trumba marina because it was not appropriate for women to play instruments of the trumpet family. And then, of course, we have the first instrumental work of the trumpet de Maury can actually be found in Michael Pretorius's instrumental collection, Terpsichore. I don't know how to pronounce
Terpsichore.
that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Terpsichore. Yes, thank you. All right, and then the Trumba de Maury marking was labeled on at least 4 of these dances. But I'll have to go back now that you mentioned the marking for the trumpets that are far away. There might be some other dances in that collection too. So, so which one is the lie? And now did we get a little thinking music, or was that?
You had it, but I can give you some. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat. Dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance. There you go. All right.
Yeah, I was totally able to think through all of that.
Yeah, me too.
So this is 2 truths and a lie?
Yeah, so you have to pick out which one is the lie.
Is this game also subtitled Kris is Always Right?
Well,
No,
yeah,
okay.
I mean, there's a bit of a challenge here. Yeah, Leanne, can you help me? What are you thinking?
Do we know exactly the date of when this instrument came to be?
No, we don't. We don't. That's
Because
one of
that
the
would really
things.
help me with my answer.
It would help me as well, but yeah, that's what's kind of interesting. Also, like, you know, there's an instrument that's discussed in Samuel Pepys' diary, the corno de splatter, or the splatter horn. But he just mentions it, and then, you know, he keeps saying that he has a story that he wants to tell us about it, but he'll tell us about it later. And that we think that probably included some stories about hearing the tromba d'amore as well, but those pages are missing. So, but I guess we at least know that they existed around the time of Samuel Pepys. So what was that published? 1660s. So,
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning towards the last one is the lie. We're supposed to pick the lie, right?
Yeah, pick the lie. Yep.
Yeah. This is partly how it's a bit of a challenge, but yeah, I think the last one is more of a lie.
Right. Brandy likes to trick us with changing like one word.
Tricky. She's tricky.
But she can't fool Kris, because Kris is the master.
Yeah.
You're the expert.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go with Pretorius. What do you think, Thomas?
I'm with you, Kris, because you know the subtitle of the game is Kris is always right, so I'm there. Pretorius.
All right.
Cool. Well, you guys are right. It was the last one. Yeah.
Wow.
So instead of 4 dances, it was actually more like 6 dances. So little tricksy.
You are so sneaky.
That is very sneaky.
A little sneaky. All right.
Wow.
Let's do the next batch. This is around our beloved Johann Sebastian Bach, who not celebrated a 2nd birthday not too long ago, depending on where you fall on that side of the thing. I'm personally pro the 21st, but you know, that's my thing. Just putting it there. So first story, Johann Sebastian Bach originally intended his famous trumpet cantata, the Jozsef Gott in Allen London, for the trumpet d'amore. But upon hearing that the Duke of I don't even know how to say that, but that Duke, right, who he wrote that for, didn't actually care for the instrument. So he reneged on that and made it for the regular trumpet. And then the second story is that Johann Sebastian first heard the trumpet d'amore played by his own father, Johann Ambrosius, who sometimes played it for ceremonies at the court in Eisenach. And then the third, after Johann Ambrosius passed, his trumpet d'amore went to Johann Sebastian's brother, Johann Jacob Bach, who remained in Eisenach and then took over as the court trumpeter in their father's stead. So which story is the lie? And here's some thinking music.
Yeah.
Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, and I dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, and I dance.
I mean, that was a lot of time. So I think I have Kris, Leanne, what do you think? I'll give mine next, and maybe Kris can go last, and we can jump on board with whatever she says.
I need another second to think. You go first, Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas.
Okay. So I'm just wondering. You know, when I read through these, and I feel like the fact that Brandy couldn't pronounce some of the names in the first one was a dead giveaway for me. So I'm going to go with point 1 exactly because of that reason.
And Leanne?
I think I'm going to go with the last one because I think she spelled Jacob wrong. I think it would have a K in it, actually.
Ooh,
so maybe she's going to get us with the spelling. I don't know. This is Brandy.
That's the kind of trick that Brandy would pull, isn't it?
Exactly. So
yeah,
I am tricksy like that.
Or maybe she knows how to pronounce everything in the first one and she's mispronouncing it to throw us off.
Brandy. You're a challenge. Yeah. Um,
Her name is Trixie Normus.
yeah, well, boy, this is really fascinating because as a trumpet player, I find it amazing how Bach knew so well to write for the trumpet because he knew so many trumpet players really well. And Anna Anna Magdalena Bach, his second wife, right, was also the daughter of a court trumpeter. So so there definitely were these connections for Bach with the trumpet players. But it seems to me that the cantata, the Jauchzigott and All in London, I feel like it would just be too busy to have the D'Amore on that particular piece. And I feel like it might take away from the sopranos spotlight moments.
Oh, she can't do that.
No, no. I think that's in their contract too, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah.
You can never overshadow the soprano. That's rule number 1 when working.
Yeah.
Also, don't trumpet d'amores, don't they usually play in like flocks or something, like more than one? Is that true?
Well, like we learned earlier, the only example that we know of a larger group is the Telemann concerto for 4. Right? Or no, the Torelli concerto for 4. Right. I don't know. I lost track.
Telemann was 3, so yeah, it's okay.
Right. Well,
so it's like a pod of trumpet d'amores.
Yeah. What? Well, yeah, or a love nest, I think is maybe the technical term for a group of tromba d'amore players, right?
That makes sense.
So like poly d'amore. So like more than
that's great.
Wow.
It's amazing how many connections we can find, right? Yeah. It's really amazing. Well, I'm going to go with the Cantata 51 reference, the number 1, the Jauchzigott.
And I mean, I will change my answer to Kris. So whatever. So I'll go with number 1 as well. Yeah.
Well, actually, I was going to say it was number 3 because well, Johann Jacob did inherit the trumpet d'amore. He didn't actually go in his father's stead and play at the court.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You didn't also spell his name wrong? Are you sure you spelled his name right?
I mean,
it's confusing.
The online resource that I looked that up spelled it that way.
Was it trumpetdamore.net?
Yes, in fact it was. Or .org, sorry, .org.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not the reliable one. I think the other one is more reliable.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was a big, I remember reading like a court document about how people were fighting over that URL and that domain name. And it was, there was a lot of, sort of like trying to determine where the tromba d'amore first landed in North America. People were fighting over it. They, is it going to be .com? Is it going to be .net? Is it going to be .edu? Like, what is it going to be? Yeah. So you have to make sure that you're looking at the right source, right?
That's true. That's true. Also another rule number 1 with another context.
Lesson learned.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, cool. Well, we've come to the final batch, if you will, and this is centered around our beloved Red Priest, Vivaldi. So the first story here. Antonio Vivaldi was asthmatic, which prevented him from playing wind instruments and other instruments like the trumpet d'amore. Second story, even though Vivaldi couldn't play wind instruments, he didn't shy away from writing many solo concertos for winds. One of his lost works is a concerto for trumpet d'amore, chalumeau, and organ. Too bad we don't have that one in publication anymore. That would have been a nice sound. And then the final one of the girls at the orphanage, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, was a virtuoso trumpet d'amorist. And I probably should have said trumpeter d'amore. That probably would have been more accurate. And premiered all 5 of Vivaldi's concertos for the meant to say trumpet d'amore in Venice. Vivaldi wrote them in 1723 and dedicated each of his trumpet d'amore concertos to her. So sorry about that typo. That does not influence whether it's the lie. So.
Well, and I think that some of those pieces could equally have been played by a viola d'amore or a tromba d'amore. So I don't think it's that far of a stretch.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But definitely not the flute d'amore.
No.
No.
That's a completely different animal.
Oh, I know. It's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. Well, what do you folks think?
I'm going to say the last one is a lie because, women shouldn't really be playing the trumpet.
Well, I don't know if I would go as far as saying that women shouldn't really be playing the trumpet.
I mean back in this time period, not today.
Yes. Yeah, I think, and there was such a huge connection with the Ospedale Pietà, the orphanage. Yeah. But the fact that he wrote specifically for a female trumpet player, yeah, I think that's my gut feeling too. What about you, Thomas?
I mean, I was just thinking, why would anybody write for the organ or Chalumeau? But that sounds pretty convincing. So I'll go with number 3 as well.
Okay.
Okay, tell us, what is it?
All right. Well, you guys are right. It is number 3 again. That was the lie. Yep. Yes, that is. So while they were premiered in Venice, just like you said, Kris and Leanne, like it wouldn't have been appropriate for a woman to play that in public. So there you have it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I've learned so much. I do have a question for you, Kris. I'm just rewinding this because I was, I found this. We featured it, of course, in the PowerPoint, right? And maybe you can tell us, like, what could you tell us? Like, is this, what are they doing here? Like, this is at least I understand it. I got it, I think, from the more authoritative source that this is at least a predecessor, perhaps, or an early version of the trumpet d'amore. Like, what's going on?
Well, this is similar to the, if you think of Bieber's Annunciation solo violin piece in the Rosary Sonatas, this is the moment where the nun has the idea of taking her tromba marina and adding a trumpet to it, a trumpet mouthpiece, and perhaps a body of a trumpet, so that we can have this best of both worlds. And I think this is akin to the moment when the angel visits Mary, and she has this divine inspiration. So I think that's I think that's what is depicted here.
Is that why we don't talk about this in history class?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult subject, and some might even say sacrilegious.
That is true.
Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just so moved.
Well, I mean, you can kind of imagine what this nun must have felt during that moment of divine inspiration, right?
I mean, clearly, hands upturned. That's exactly what she's thinking. That's interesting. Why are there no tassels on this, though? Or like, why is the guy wearing the tassels around his neck instead of like on the instrument?
Oof. Well, perhaps he hadn't gotten to that yet. Perhaps he was, perhaps the tassel is around his neck to show how it would be inappropriate for a nun to have the tassel on her instrument. And so he is like symbolically showing how constrained the nuns might feel by having the tassel around his neck.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
that makes total sense. Yeah.
I think that's the symbolism that I see there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so really, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the trumpet d'amore, as a battle of the sexes kind of instrument. I mean, no wonder it never really took off as much as maybe some of the others. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's full of controversy.
Yeah.
Full of something for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
That is true.
All right. Well, Kris, we've learned so much from you today. Are there any parting thoughts about anything we've talked about? Anything maybe we should know more about? You are our expert, of course. So
yeah, I can't really think of anything else, but these are the times. It happens a lot in historical performance practice where we wish there were a time machine where we could go back and witness this music and these instruments and these musicians. And I think this is just a representation of that.
Yeah, clearly an excellent representation of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun learning about the trumpet d'amore, a very real instrument that is not talked about very often or seen, perhaps for good reason. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Kris. This was a lot of fun to learn about that from, of course, the world authority on this instrument.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think it's a topic that has been silent for too long already.
Yep.
Excellent. Great. Leanne, Brandy, any other thoughts?
Oh, I have learned so much today. I just want to say thank you, Kris, for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and educating us young minds on a subject that was never talked about in music history. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect. And with that, the BBE is live almost every Friday. Join us next week for another adventure.
Nottingham ale, boys, Nottingham ale. No liquor on earth is like Nottingham ale. Nottingham ale, boys, Nottingham ale. No liquor on earth is like Nottingham ale.